for making time for this. A warm welcome to all our panelists. Today, we are having a discussion on skills versus degrees. And personally, I feel both are very important. And as Dr. Gupta said, the universities, the human touch, the discussions with professors is something that's not going away. We are seeing AI coming in, we are seeing advanced technologies coming in. We understand that it has an impact, but we would want to know how it's impacting not only students' behavior, but also your faculties, your structure of teaching, right? Also, according to a PwC report, it says that around 60% of jobs are going to go away because of automation. And it's a real thing that we are facing today. You being professors and groomers of the leaders of tomorrow in India, we would want to understand how students are reacting when it comes to skill versus degrees. Platforms like Google are kind of claiming that we offer certifications and degrees which are 6 months long, a year long, which have a same quality, they claim. So that it has the same quality that a 4-year long or a 3-year long degree course. It is still debatable in my view. And in this panel, we would like to understand how will it grow and evolve in next 5 years or 10 years. In your opening remarks, I would want to know what are some of the changes that you have observed in last, let's say, 12 months or 24 months, let's say, and how has been the students' response? How are faculties responding with majority of the changes we have seen? Can we start with the lady on the panel? Professor Gupta, please.
Well, first, thanks Businessworld for giving me this opportunity, and I'm really feel honored to be a part of this esteemed panel. So I think it's two things you asked. First, what degree or skill, what is the student perception, and secondly, how students are handling this AI tools and all. So first, for degree versus skill, I would like to say that whether degree is important or skill is important, it depends on the trajectory of the career a person is. For instance, a person who is thinking of educational degree after 12, they are looking for a strong foundation. They are looking for some sort of base which gives them good entry points in the corporate. They want a good networking opportunity, and all these things come from degree. It cannot come from short intervention, 1 month, 2 months, or even 10 months. Whereas if we compare it with the persons who have already done one degree, who are already in their workspaces, they want to evolve, then they look for this opportunity where the skill enhancement can happen. So I would say that both are required at different stages of careers, but yes, if we look at the degree, now going forward, there might be more intervention where pedagogies are evolved, which are made more learner-centered, which are more experiential. So all these things, all those inputs should be incorporated in the degrees.
Good to know. Now coming to you, Professor Singh. We understand that this has been the traditional norm that we seeing in terms of universities, students teaching. Now, the question is this going to disrupt in coming future? 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, and in addition to this, how are we going to fill the gap between academia and industry? That is something I would want you to touch upon and tell us how it has been in the last 12 or 24 months.
Thank you very much. You are Madam Resham.
Yes.
Thank you. And my respect to all dignitaries on the dais and sitting in front of us. And thanks to Businessworld, Dr. Partha and the entire team. You see, I will respond to that question, but the title of this discussion should be always in the mind in the beginning at least. And what is that? That degree or skills. Exactly, I'll read that. Degree or skills, what matters more in career? See the whole perspective. I'm painting two pictures before you. One is boat race in Kerala during Onam. Long boats are there, and each boat is competing with another boat. But in that boat, 2 rows of sailors are there. longboard, one row, another row. Now these two rows are not competing with each other because sailors of both the rows are sailing the boat in the same direction. Other picture you imagine, tug of war. One team pulling the rope in one side and other team pulling the rope in the other side. My question is that why we put this question in the title itself, which is more important, as if we are painting degree versus skills as tug of war, and I am trying to draw your attention, invite your attention towards this whole phenomenon as, let us say, boat race where both the rows are sailing the boat in the same direction. Why I am saying you, in one of the discussions which happened after NEP came into picture, and I was also a member of one subcommittee for implementation of one part of NEP, and a question came, did anything NEP document missed, which is very important and it should have been there? Now it was a difficult question on the spur of the moment, but you know, God is always kind to professors. God gives ideas when you stand on your knees, and especially when we stand we become more creative. But anyway, now we are sitting. My answer was that NEP missed one golden sentence which should have been included there in the NEP document, and that golden sentence is, based on my deeper experience of a student, not as a professor but as a student, that NEP should have documented that we will bring back the same dignity to graduation level degree as the dignity it was enjoying in 70s or 80s. Why I am saying so? Because graduation degree has witnessed very much dilution. And we say, okay, this is graduation, you do post-graduation, then you will become skillful. So bringing back the dignity to graduation level degree, it means strengthening the degree level education should have been, or would have been, still more emphasized. Dignifying the degree level programs where after doing the degree, students could declare, my education is sufficient, now I do not want to do post-graduation, because the crowd towards post-graduation is too heavy, towards PhD also it is too heavy. So it is Onam boat race vis-a-vis tug of war. Now coming to the present situation, in academia or in industry, both are witnessing fast changes. The change is just like one wave comes on the seashore and creates a kind of geometrical shape on the seashore, on the sand. The another wave comes, destroys the earlier and creates a new kind of shape. With that speed, things are changing. But in that change, academicians must find, amidst the change, what is that perennial value, or let us say purpose of education, that must be preserved. Now what are the changes taking place? Change taking place because of, let us say, technology-driven economy, where every professional course at least has to gear up towards the required changes. And especially, I am a student of management and we deal with MBAs, and MBA basically is a course which is market-driven, unlike, let us say, botany or physics or Sanskrit or history. So we have to gear up for those situations. But to industry friends, I would like to say, too much expectation, please don't mistake me, too much expectation that your graduate should be industry ready. Sometimes I lovingly challenge them, are you saying that my MBA should be ready for the first job that you are going to offer? Is that the purpose of MBA? MBA purpose is not to prepare a skillful person for management trainee level. MBA is a leveler. MBA is a degree which should prepare you for managing director level also. So industry persons and academia, they need to come closer and understand each other's, let us say, needs. And in that case, with this ephemeral nature of information-based knowledge, where we are less emphasizing on wisdom and knowledge, more on skill and information, we have to be careful that what are ephemeral and what are perennial values. So to begin with, I think in next round I may say something more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What Professor Singh is trying to say is that the skill and degree cannot be versus race. These two things are together, and it seems like we're in the right direction. Also to your second point that you said that they're expecting you to be, the expectations are too high, and industry and academia needs to be closer, come closer, work together. I would want to come to you again to discuss it in detail. I'm coming to you, Professor Chatterjee. Now, how are you looking at it, skill versus degree, your first take? And in addition to that, how are you expecting the changes going forward? As far as we spoke to two panelists on our panel, we understood that there cannot be versus. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Completely agree with the view that was expressed right now. That, I think it's part of the world that we live in today, where we see much more fractionalized world, much more conflicts probably, that we try to pit things one against another. But really, it's not, right? Particularly skills versus degree. Because first of all, let's think about it. When we talk about skills, what do we mean by skills itself? And that itself is something that we need to probably think a little bit harder and define harder in a world that is changing. A few years back, the kind of skills that we would have talked about or would have been valued is no longer valued, as you pointed out in your beginning remarks, that things are changing and some of the jobs that were there, those are no longer going to be there. So if we are just going to focus on skills, which is devoid of other aspects of education, then we're not going to be able to build our citizens, our future workers, to create, to innovate, and to lead. So we cannot just take skills out of education and see that in vacuum, right? At the same time, if you think about education itself and degrees and using it interchangeably, education and degrees, let's call it degrees to be more precise. The way we have been thinking about degrees and building degrees, that itself has to be re-examined in this context, right? That what are we trying to do? What is the role of a degree? And again, in this space, can we just think about a degree where there's no skills, right? I mean, Professor here talked about some business-facing degrees like MBAs and some not, but actually there is nothing like a degree which is not market-facing. Why would a student just go and get a degree that will not earn a livelihood in the future, right? There cannot be a degree just for the sake of it. So we need to re-examine and understand what is it that we are doing. And in this, again, we need to go back and understand what are the kind of skills that we're talking about. In a world that is changing, in a world where there's AI and all of it that's coming in. So for example, a kind of a skill that we would want very much in the people who are going to face a very uncertain future is this ability to learn continuously. Because we really don't know that what we are teaching today would continue to be valued in the same way as it is. But what we can do is we can prepare our students to ensure that they are able to learn things, right? Thinking about AI again, we need people who can ask questions, not only solve problems, right? Can we think about that as a skill? It's a very, very critical skill. And can that be taken out of a degree, right? Can we prepare a 6 months thing or something where we can just prepare our students who are able to do this, learn, relearn, figure out new things continuously, and second, also ask right questions. And similarly, can we build a degree where we are not importing these things? We are just giving them some vertical knowledge or some particular tools. Can that degree be valued? So I think the future, as I see it, is a complementary of both the things. It's a combination of both the things, where skills will be valued for sure, but the set of skills itself is going to change. And therefore, we as educators have that duty in some ways to build degrees where we can accommodate this kind of splitting sense of changing world that we live in, and the kind of skills that will be valued, and think about what is it that will be valued and bring it to today's education. And therefore, I think it's this marriage of both skills and degrees that's going to survive, and either in vacuum is not going to be valued.
So, Professor, are you saying that because of all these changes happening, universities and professors and leading faculties are required to relook at this structure? They are required to reinvent that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I wouldn't say reinvent. There are a lot of these things which were happening, but we really need to re-examine to a certain extent that how we are doing things, right? For example, I will give a particular example that I'm very attached to. I've been building a lot of different kinds of degrees at my university, but bringing research into undergraduate education, and that also goes back to this point that can we elevate the status of an undergraduate education? Why do we want to bring research into undergraduate education? And that's also there in NEP, right? It's not because we want to prepare these students for PhD, because only a very small fraction of an undergraduate population will go on to do PhD. But precisely because we want to impart this kind of a skill where they are able to identify problems, they are able to ask questions, and then bring it to a point where it's solvable. Whether they can solve it or not at an undergraduate level, that's a very different, right? We're not expecting them to come up with innovative solutions, but at least that is, because in any job that you do, that's going to be a critical skill. Because if you are just going to think about very repetitive things, AI is already doing, right? So I think we need to rethink in that sense. That
so clearly, there is a need, there is a call to relook, reevaluate, and then reinvent. And this is not a blanket call. The professors, the leaders in the industry will see how will it work out. Now, coming to you, Professor Kumar, what's your first take on this? How do you look at skill versus degree? I mean, so far we're not seeing versus hair anymore, but what's your take on this?
Vanakkam everyone. Thank you so much. Super thrilled to be here. Any disruption is going to cause displacements. Any disruption. From industrial revolution, we have been seeing this where machines replaced us. Thereafter computers, today artificial intelligence. Life is going to go on. Disruptions are going to go on. But this is a very disruptive era. We see disruptions practically in everything. The self-educated entrepreneurs have always made us think, what degree did Dhirubhai Ambani earn? How did he build this empire? I remember in one of the press conferences just a while before he died, he was asked this question, what is the secret? How did you do this? From scratch, no family background, no degrees. How did you do this? He simply, in his own inevitable style, said, guts. This cannot be taught in a B school. The degree can't give you this. Or let's take Sridhar Wembu from Zoho. He says, we as a company are not going to consider degrees. Your academic credentials do not matter to us. Elon Musk of Tesla also says similar things, saying that as long as you're able to do this, we're not going to be really bothered about the degrees. However, a degree is an academic rigor. It is a foundational concept. Of course, the foundation itself will not suffice. We got to build over this foundation. We got to build the skills along with the changes in the technological models and the business models. The National Board of Economic Research says in their study, there is a very significant and strong correlation between higher education and cognitive development. So Indra Nooyi acknowledges that it was because of a higher education that she had that global perspective to solve problems of PepsiCo when she was heading it. Sundar Pichai also acknowledges it is because of his intellectual acumen that he has sharpened his strategic and decision-making skills. So I think the degree will always serve as a foundation on which we build with agility and adaptability. Thank you.
I mean, very pertinent point, and as a part of my job, I get to meet and interact with a lot of entrepreneurs. I cover startups at BW, and this is something that's really common between all of them, expecting no line of academics, the degrees, this and that. But the question here is, will they really take up the students who have no background in academics? This is the real question, and I mean, it's debatable, but. To your point, degree is a foundation that's needed, and above that, we can build up our skills. Colonel, I'm coming to you. What's your opening remarks? I mean, if you have a different take on this.
Good morning, everyone, and especially a big thanks to Businessworld for having us here. And I could not agree more with my co-panelists here, though Professor Praveen has just sprung a surprise by saying that there are so many entrepreneurs who have actually not taken recourse to their degrees but have actually made a name for themselves in the market. There are so many examples that he has quoted. I will also quote from my personal example because I am coming here from BITS Pilani, and BITS Pilani has always been a pioneer in setting the two, like our Professor Singh has told earlier. It is a perfect blend of degree as well as skill. So there is nothing like imparting the skill while you are giving the degree. So that is what was the stern belief. In fact, I myself am an alum from BITS Pilani, and way back this practice school concept was started in 70s, and that is now full-fledged in functioning today. We have two practice schools, that is practice school 1, that is after second year, which is a summer internship, and then which is a longer duration, that is 6 months or like 1 year, depending upon the stream. So that is done by pure science students, engineering graduates, also higher degree students. Now the good part or good aspect of this, as our moderator here pointed out, is that you can't step into that world without a degree, and you can't have a degree without the skill. So that blend is perhaps what we are looking in, and there I am very happy to say here that of this last year itself, our students, when they went for their internship, they got more than 100 crores as internship money. So that itself shows that the industry appreciates the degree, or also is ready to train these people.
100 crores is a collective figure, huh?
100
I got excited.
Yeah, but then individually also, a student when he is in the final year earns up to 2 lakhs per month. So that is the highest. And the average or the minimum is 40,000. So that speaks volumes about the industry's demand as well as the student meeting their aspirations. Now coming back to certain things which again I will just share my thoughts with the co-panelists, that you said about that PhD and entrepreneurship. We are a startup factory in the desert. So even in the US, when they do a total study, Stanford recently did it, the maximum number of startups that were founded was by BITS Pilani. We are currently at number 3 after IIT Delhi and IIT Mumbai. But notwithstanding that, now we want to incorporate the entrepreneurship in our curriculum. So we have now started something which is called a PhD drive. That means when you do your PhD, at the end of your PhD, which will be around 4 years, you will have something which is a patent, and you will have some startup idea, and you will go into startup straight away. So that is merging again the two. That means your degree and your skill. You have a PhD degree and you are already into a startup. So there are certain good and brilliant examples which Pilani is doing. We are also doing a lot of corporate thesis. We are also into projects industry projects and things like that, which I will come and elaborate later. But to start with, I am very happy with my co-panelists that everybody agrees here that there is no friction between the two. Actually, there are two merging concepts. One is the degree, another is the skill.
Good to know, Colonel. I'm coming to you, Professor Singh. Now tell me, if we continue traditionally teaching our students, continue with what we have been seeing last 50, 60, 70 years, how universities are working, the pedagogies, but how will it impact the employability going forward? I mean, you just said that industry has high expectations, which in some way is fine. But there is also a point which you would also agree that there is a need to have a collaboration between how skills and degrees can have a marriage or have a collaboration. How, if you continue traditionally, as I asked, two part of my questions. One is, how will it impact the employability going forward? And to your earlier point, academia and industry needs to come together, work together more for collaboration. What is needed there? So two parts of my question.
So first part, on my left side is Professor Mahima from IIM Amritsar. She is expert of quantitative techniques. So it will be very dangerous for me to utter anything about operations research in front of her. But I'll tell you. First question is, if we keep teaching in traditional way, what is going to be the future of the students or their...
Or how will it impact employability? And, I mean, in terms of how industry is expecting students to be, how will it impact?
Number one, if we teach something for the sake of that thing, employability will be less. I'll give you an example also. And if we teach anything, and I'm very happy that you said, there's no need to say that history will not take to employability and MBA will take. Anything must ensure that it leads to, let us say, proper engagement and employability. But if I teach operations research, starting with linear programming, standing on the blackboard and saying that there are two functions, one is objective and one is constant, or there are many constants, one objective function. That is one way of teaching it. I will understand that concept, will write in the exam and will get some marks. But I give you an example, my teacher in operations research, his first class, and he said, dear students, there are 8 windows in this classroom. Remove the curtain and small groups, you stand before the window and see outside. Something are visible. Is there any problem outside visible? So one side there is a paddy field, other side there are roads, other side. So students came that there are certain issues which if addressed in that context, the things will better in the frame which is visible to me by that particular window. That is the better condition they described. They said this is the objective function. Now think about what are various constants, economic constants or legal constants or administrative constants or absence of inner drive, that is a constant. And what can be mathematicalized? I mean to say, all those constants which can be captured by mathematical frame, they become your restraining forces. And then let there be now tug of war between objective and restraining forces and find the optimization. So that was a very good way. And you know, my teacher, when he started discussing tan theta with me and tan 45, he had given this example of Delhi, and he did not say tan theta is equal to that perpendicular divided by base, and if there is tan 45, it will be equal to 1. He gave example like this in class 9th, I remember, class 8th perhaps. When you are standing before Qutub Minar, how you can have a good estimate of it? What I am trying to say, I am not giving example, I am saying anything is connected to life experience. Your knowledge can be tested in the laboratory of life. Then only it is worth education. So he said, when you stand before Qutub Minar, go to a distance where probably the distance, that angle that you are making by your eyesight looking at the top is around 45 degrees. Then you measure the distance of your point where you are standing from the base of the Qutub Minar, that is the estimated height of Qutub Minar. Because then 45 will be equal to 1 and you are making 45 degree angle, base will be equal to height. So you can measure the base, you can't measure the height because you can't become tall, no? So measure the base and that is the good estimate of height. So unless we teach that everything that you are reading or studying is connected to some use in life that teachers must develop. That's the point.
Very practical.
Second point is that, you see, now I'm working in Tamil Nadu, and there, Tiruvalluvar wrote 2000 years back, Tirukural. And in one verse he says, your two eyes are only mark of wounds. आपकी दोनों आंखें सिर्फ घाव के निशान हैं. Your two eyes are mark of wounds. If your one eye is not giving you a skill which is arithmetics or let us say digit oriented, mathematical skill, and other eye is not giving you a skill which is basically language skill through all social sciences and humanities develop. I mean to say, any student, imagine from class 5 to class 12, these two skills are very essential. We can talk about managerial skill later on. Sir is colonel, and I learned from defense organization, and I was interacting with them. When a major becomes lieutenant colonel, lieutenant colonel becomes colonel becomes brigadier, every time there is leadership skill, let us say orientation classes or interventions. Because what brought you here will not take you there. What brought you as a leader, as HOD of any university, will not perfectly make you with the same skill set a good vice chancellor. And Dr. Anurag was also saying about leaders, and I would like to add to that tune that leaders must grow gracefully. And if we are reaching at the top, we must have a skill of giving or orientation of giving. Unless we are a good giver, we can't be a good leader. So, various things are there. And I'll just quote, I'm just quoting this. These are very classical examples. Hitopdesh was written by Narayan Pandit. And what he is saying about skill, he says, Kalpayati yena cha vritting, yena cha loke prashashyate sadbhe, sa gunah ten cha gunina, raksha samvardhaniya cha. It means those skill sets which give you livelihood, and the same set also gives you accolades, appreciation. Such a skill set should not only be protected, but should be developed on daily basis. American Management Association says there are 23 interpersonal skills only on which every manager of the world should be trained, and every manager of the world deserves 69 days of training only on interpersonal skills. And the magic figure he gets 69 is 23 multiplied by 3, 23 different sets, different context of interpersonal dialogue, and for each context 3 days training. So, a skill versus degree is not only whether degree should contain all the skills. I would say that degree program is just like this. If we say, oh dear, your designation is general manager, but please take care of your designation, and you must behave like general manager. Now, once I say you are general manager, the person should know that what is meaning of general manager. There is no need to say you must have the skills and values of general manager. When you have degree, we must be able to know that that degree also actually encompasses as all the skill sets. So there is no type of war, but I will suggest, and last point down, that in any BBA or MBA or BTech or any program after plus 2, please see that 15%, because degree will try to give you every skill set, but still it will fail. So about 15% of energy and resources should be invested in colleges, institutions, universities to build skills which are not covered by syllabus. Because syllabus cannot cover everything. That is the point. And that's why second question comes that in this demanding time, dynamic time, as sir also said, that different skill sets would be needed. And once, let us say, we pass on the efficiency responsibility to become efficient to AI or machine learning, because in the future, human being will keep passing on certain works which are efficiency oriented to machine, let us say. In that case, human being has to keep reinventing what further skill one has to take up. So not only degree and skill should be married, but sir and ma'am, with your permission, skills and values also should be married, because only skill and no values, then it is basically unguided missile.
Lovely, very well explained. Thank you, Professor Singh. If it deserves, we can do it loudly. Professor Gupta, what do you say? Do you feel or do you find the need to reinvent the curricula, the syllabus? How would you look at this evolving in the coming future? Let's say 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Do you see a need to change or reinvent the whole curricula? I'm not keeping a blanket cap on this, but what's your take on this?
So I would like to put it in this way that if we want to make our education, our offerings more effective, how we can do that? As my co-panelist just mentioned, it's not that earlier whatever we were doing was wrong. There were some good practices, there were teachings, there were professors who were trying to connect with the real life. But now the task is how do we leverage on what good things were there and how should we evolve in the current times. So if we need to see it in this way, so I think we have to think it in terms of an ecosystem. And if we look from an education perspective, ecosystem comprises learners, faculty, education institutions and government. So it has to be a synergistic approach where we come together find out how can we make our learnings more effective. So let's say if we start from government, so there's a lot of focus to NEP that we should relook at our education system, we should try to evolve our systems. There is a guidance on multidisciplinary offerings, there is a guidance on continuous evaluation. So there are a lot of things which are being mandated by the government and they are approaching different educational institutions to do that. Now who will be doing this? Who will be orchestrating all these changes in the institution? That comes to faculty and leadership in the institution. So there what we have observed that there are certain policies, but in order to drive it down to the lower levels, we need a lot of leadership and cultural inputs there. For instance, let's say when COVID happened, most of us have to shift to online medium. There were a lot of apprehensions in the faculty and the student that how effective that medium would be. And from the inertia and apprehension came fear. So there the point is, in order to bring into effective changes, we should put focus on appropriate faculty training, appropriate apparatus. Through this, changes can be made. Now we come to the most important stakeholder of our education system, that is learner. So I would reinforce what my co-panelist just said, that it's not just skill, it's not just a foundation, it's about value. So I'll just quote one Sanskrit shol, Vidya dadati vinyam, vinaya dadati patratam. So the point here is we should work in such a way that our students have humility to understand that they need to learn. Then only they would be capable to understand all these things which are being taught. Because the point here is not what should be learned, the point is we should learn to learn. So the point here, orientation should be that we engage those kind of discussions with our students. We ourselves as faculty, as administrations, are open-minded that yes, it's not an end, what we know is not all, we have to keep on evolving.
This circle back to Professor Singh's point, skill plus values that cannot go away, right? Now Professor Chatterjee, if you can tell me in 3 specific points, and it's always tough, but I'm expecting you being a professor, you can do it. 3 specific points when we look at academia and industry collaboration, what is needed to be done? We know that we're facing disruption in all across segments, sectors. Industries are expecting students to be well versed with what they're expecting in their respective fields. Now, when we look at academia, the syllabus, curricula, what is needed to be done? It's just not the syllabus, but from a broader perspective. In 3 points, what's needed to be done?
Well, that's always something that professors do to ensure that the students are attentive and all. Give me 3 points, right? And that's what she's doing. Yeah. No, but look, in terms of this whole intersection or interaction both between industry and academia, I think there's a lot that needs to be done and can be done. To begin with, I think the first point I would like to make is that there is a need to reset expectations from both the industry and the academia. I was part of a CIA subcommittee once where we looked at exactly this kind of a question, that how can we bring industry and academia together and closer, particularly in terms of doing research, right? And in India, that's almost absent. And part of the reason when you talk to industry leaders and when you talk to academicians, they are going to tell you very different things in terms of what they expect in this relationship. If you talk to an industry person, and I'm talking about now not only undergraduate programs, but PhD, all of it, the whole gamut of higher education, the expectation is that academia will solve their problems, right? That they have certain problems, they are facing certain challenges in either, it can be very real space like manufacturing to very abstract space like dealing with people or environment or something like that, right? So industry thinks that, okay, we are facing these problems and academia should have answers to that. Academia, if you talk to academicians on the other side, that, okay, what do you want from the industry? What is it that you expect from the industry? The answer often seems to be that, oh, I have an excellent research agenda and I want the industry to fund. Right? So there is this conversation that's happening in parallel. Industry is ready to fund, but only for certain projects or certain questions that they want answers to. Academia is ready to work with the industry, but again, to answer questions or research agenda that helps them. So that's the first bridge that we need to build. That, okay, where can we bring them together? And maybe there is a role for building big projects and things like that, where some of this fundamental research can be done, but also industry can get certain answers to them, right? Their questions. So this is a tough one, because how do you build that bridge between this expectation and that expectation? Much easier thing, and coming to, since you said 3 points. And by the way, in terms of expectation, let me add to this where I was talking about research, but it's also to a certain extent about degrees, right? And that's what Professor here mentioned, that the degree is not to train them for their first job. Right? The industry expects that they will come ready for their first job, but the degree is not necessarily that. It's not going to give a manual to students to say that you read this, you learn this, and you go and get the first job and you'll be successful. The degree is to prepare students for their lives. Right? It's to prepare for a career which spans 20, 30 years. So it cannot be just tailored towards the first job. Right? But at the same time, for the industry, there's a problem, right? Because if the students come in and they still have to train them again, then that's a costly thing. So again, maybe this is my second point then, that, again, in terms of this bringing the industry and academia together, we need to bridge this gap also, that, okay, how can we, in a degree, ensure that they have the right skills, the right tools, the right thought processes to succeed in life and build a strong career.
My apologies, Professor, I'm interrupting. Can we please keep our phones on silent? It disturbs the flow. Thank you so much. Back to you, Professor.
So that's the second bridge, I think. One is what I talked about in terms of expectation, in terms of research and solving problems. The second in terms of preparation for the job market. And the third, I think, is something that goes to what has been happening in the higher education sector over the last 10, 15 years in particular. I think the industry is doing a lot in terms of building institutions and universities through philanthropy, through other ways of funding, and we have seen that really changing the landscape in terms of how higher education is shaping up in this country. And we, as a country, are very fortunate in some sense because we have a huge base of young people. Right? The Western world, the developed economies, they are facing a different kind of a problem today where their population is starting to fall. Their birth rates are below the replacement rate. And India is going to get there in 20 or 30 years. Right? But we still have that bit of time to invest in our young population. And that cannot be done only by the government or only by the private space, but I think a combination where an industry, the public, all of them come together and ensure that we have the right resources so that we reap this benefit and it does not go waste. Because as an economist, I worry a lot about whether our country is going to become a more developed country within the next 20 or 30 years when the demographic transition is going to complete. So I think the role for an industry and academia is again to ensure that we have this whole infrastructure, both in terms of physical infrastructure as well as human infrastructure, to train and prepare our next generation for that.
Wonderfully explained. And it's not something that's not happening at the moment. Currently, it's not something that's not happening, but we look forward to a richer collaboration between academia and industry. Now, Professor Kumar, you mentioned about a lot of startup examples, a lot of entrepreneurs, what's happening in the industry. In opening address, Dr. Partha also mentioned goals, aspirations are real, and more so for the young graduated students. If in any anecdote you would want to explain this, how are students reacting to this industry expectation or a state wherein they're weighing skill over degree? How are students reacting to this, and what change are you foreseeing?
As educators, what we are trying to do is we are trying to build an ecosystem which is more inclusive and open, that creates the desired outcome. So peer learning, peer evaluation, internships, case-based learnings, so the connect with the industry, with the community-based learning. These are some new dimensions that we have added. So what is intriguing is when IBM or Google or Amazon says degree is not important for us, the academic credential does not matter to us. Technically, this is possible because learning is open. They always have micro credentials, micro learning. We also acknowledge that and we also credit those learnings as well. However, the credibility of a degree is irreplaceable, especially for certain professions like medicine. Can a doctor say, I have super skills, but I do not have a degree? A surgeon, it would be a nightmare when a surgeon says, I do not have a degree. Law, academia, for us, the credibility comes from the degree. So, as I've told, the credibility is there. Added to this credibility is the advancement of skills, which we are trying to create an ecosystem. I would see Dr. Devi Shetty as a beautiful example. As a doctor by profession, look at the healthcare system that he has created. Millions of Indians get quality healthcare at a very affordable price. So this is the type of learners in different professions that we educators are trying to build.
Kulnan, now tell me if we are expecting in any near future, in 20 years down the line, 10 years down the line, can we expect a student to step out of university and next day join the company ready? Will a student be able to match the industry standard expectations?
Yeah, so this is the demand and supply chain. If the student is unable to match the requirements of the industry, he will not find a job. That is number one. But to continue to where I just wanted to add on, is that in the futuristic scope of things, we have to understand that this ABC you will, all would have heard, there is the academic bank of credit where there is multiple entry, multiple exit. So if the student is not ready, he has to go out and then come back in again after acquiring that necessary skill. So in that I will just add that there is a C, which is the continued learning, which everyone here agrees that this is a lifelong learning. You have to be self-motivated and you have to be volunteering to learn, and that is the skill that will give you that edge, that competitiveness and the employability. You have to have that distance learning, which is also the digital learning or e-learning, where UGC has come out with the Swayam plus courses. So that is one edge that you will possess. You will have the E, which is our experiential learning, which I just spoke about, the practice school, the thesis and all that. And finally, you should also have the futuristic bent of mind, because the futuristic learning will keep you in that company for a long time. So you have a degree, but you do require that skill set, and it is always worthwhile to continue to hone on and sharpen your skills. Thank you.
Any closing remarks before we actually close from any panelist who would want to add? Any closing remarks?
Hello, I'd like to add that there are 3 types of teachers, 1, 2 and 3. Say type 1, those who do not cover the syllabus.
You do not cover the syllabus?
No, they do not teach the syllabus properly.
I am afraid now.
Nobody is there in this room like that. Type 2 are those who cover the syllabus and cover well, but they need not to be satiated. Third type is waiting for them. Third type is one who uncovers the syllabus and helps students to discover the further course of knowledge for lifelong learning. And my last point is that we should make our degree robust, still fully knowing that at no point of time degree will fully ensure the total rating. तो अकबर इलाहाबादी ने कहा कि संभले कहाँ वो अब मेरी नजरों की फोर्स से, नजर मतलब विजडम, संभले कहाँ वो अब मेरी नजरों की फोर्स से, कॉलेज उलझ कर रह गया सिलेबस के कोर्स से. So we have to have good degree, still we have to keep going beyond degree. That is my point.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, panelists, for making time for this. This discussion has been really insightful for me. I am going away with so many tips.